Maybe now. Hmm. All right, first 10 seconds. Seems pretty good. I think it's it. Yep. All right. Now we're good to go. I'll just power options so we don't go dark. Yeah, pretty good. Hello.
Hello.
One thing that interests me always, what brings you to Latvia and what are your impressions so far?
Okay, labdien, it's hello on the Latvian.
It is. If you say it at this time, you need to say good evening, which would be labvakar.
Labvakar, okay, sorry, because I
All fine,
normally
all
say
good,
it
man.
through it. I'm from Ukraine. My name is Misha or Mykhailo, it's up to you. And in Latvia, I had Erasmus youth exchange. And we had during 1 week project in Liepāja in the east coast of Baltic Sea. And it's amazing city. I liked it, and we had project about eco-friendly. We talking about ecological footprint, make some campaign, make the videos, and find some solutions for recycling some stuff, some rubbish in our countries. About my impression in the Latvia, I had a lot of flashbacks, especially Riga, because my city where I'm studying now, it was founded in 13th century. Riga and my hometown Lviv. We had old city, and it's the heritage of UNESCO. We have the same buildings because Lviv was part in Austria Empire, and Riga had a lot of influence from Germany, from Prussia, and it really I traveled to my home back. It's I have not. Uh, Different views for my city and for Riga. I like this city. It's amazing place, and especially in evening where we have the yellow lights in the cities and smiling people, live music, and it's amazing.
So would you say you see more similarities than differences?
Yes.
That's boring then.
Yeah, I know, but for me, I visited Sigulda
Mhm.
today. It's amazing city. It's like the really horror film because we had the smoke on the whole area of the city, and castles, medium age castle, and it was art object about hell. And some strange heard it's really a nice city. I liked it, and it's the most reason for me why I want back to Latvia again.
Hmm.
It's still good. And I visited Jurmala. Jurmala for me, it's oh my god, because when I saw Dzintari, it's your concert area. Because in my childhood we had New Wave. It is a so popular pop
In
Russian.
Ukraine?
No, not in Ukraine. Translate,
Ah,
watching in TV,
all right.
yes. And
Interesting.
every August, my granny and my grandfather whole time watching this, and me too, because they stay me in home for evening. And we watching this, and in my mind, I remember that Zintari concert hall, it was very big and huge built, but when I saw it in live, it's very little. It's very
Hmm.
little. It's like altans in the beach, really. And these chairs from wood. It's like in my school. And oh my God, what is this? But in Jurmala, I saw many beautiful builds from wood and cottage, but they have not a lot of tourists, and it's so strange because street was empty. And every souvenir shops was closed, and I think what
It's November.
happened. I know it's November, but it's really was empty.
Yeah, November, December. and I guess they start around April again.
I talked with the woman who sells some souvenirs, but they're not in special boxes. It's for her only own. She sells some workshops from Amber. And we talk about new wave and about Jurmala development after this concert performance. And she said so many tourists decided don't go to the Jurmala because she has her own lost money because in the August she sold for and make money for whole year, but now she need sell whole time because it's not enough money for life for her.
Do you mean because of the new wave transition to Sochi?
Yes.
I thought about it once and talked about it. Actually, I think it's a good thing for Jurmala. Why? You know why? Because all these years, Jurmala was concentrated on just a season. Every activity, everything that was interesting, everything that was useful, just happened in the summer, basically. Now, you take that event away. Now they have to actually figure out what to do all year round.
Yes.
Right. So I think in the long run it might be useful because other than the summer, Jurmala used to be very, very not interesting at all. So if you are the, let's say, mayor of the city, what would you do, right? You would start using your brain. So what do we need to do? How can we do it? And actually, Jurmala they started somewhat a research project a couple of years ago, and they wanted to figure out what are the main reasons why tourists come to Jurmala. And so yes, events and the beach was a big factor, but other factors were also some national park. Well, a national park a little bit further away from Jurmala, and the spas, the hotels, all these things. So afterwards, they wanted to track the traffic, who comes from where. I think most come from Russia, Belarus, and everything else might be a mix. And so they wanted to target afterwards, right? So basically they profile their audience, their current audience, and they want to branch out. So I think in the long run, you might be surprised when you go back there a couple of years later, it might have changed.
I agree with you because it's the reason why they should develop the city. And in my opinion, the main tourist flow from people who has imagined about Jurmala like a Soviet social resort. And many peoples from Russia, Belarus, sometimes from Ukraine, some people who emigrant to Germany and Israel, they come to Jurmala back because they remember this moment, how they feel in their young.
How old are you?
I am 21.
So you don't really...
Yes, I don't know.
not that person you are describing.
Because you know about Ukrainian problem with the Russians people and Soviet mentality. Now we want
actually
try to change it.
To be honest, I know that in 2014 there was the Crimea thing. Other than that, I'm not sure whether or not I've heard much about what's happening there. But you can tell me afterwards. I mean,
yes.
During our conversation, we have plenty of options.
I was born near of Crimea. It's the city close to Crimea.
Is it similar to the beach in Jurmala? Anything similar?
What, Crimea?
Because it's a resort, right?
Crimea, yes, it's a resort, but it's more biggest resort and for seasons, because we have a season from April to October, and we have here mountains, and some people's traveled before
I thought you-
2014.
I thought you guys had good weather all year round.
They have. I can swim in October in Black Sea in Crimea. I
very
can
good.
do it in Liepāja or Jurmala because it's very so cold.
Yeah.
Yes, and this why it's a more popular resort for people who traveled to this place. But after the occupation, this territory, this area, they have no problem. They have problem with tourists because
Crimea?
yes.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure because I have a lot of friends from Crimea. It's close to my hometown.
But did anything major change?
Change because a lot of my parents and me every year we had rest in Crimea because
Alright.
it's so close to. But now I prefer other place, Turkey, Greece.
But you could go
Bulgaria.
to Crimea.
I can go, but
Yeah.
I don't want to go because they have very high prices for everything, and they had.
What? Really?
Yes, it's like in Moscow. They're very high prices because we closed our border and no stuff and goods from Ukraine going. They don't go to Crimea,
Alright.
and they export from Russia by ferry, by road. It's very more expensive, and they have the sanction. No European countries or other countries in the world they have no doing business here because it's sanctioned
Crimea?
territory. Yes, and Russian the main banks, Sberbank or other banks, their main malls, famous malls, they don't work in Crimea because they have sanction from European Union.
You mean they stay closed?
Yeah, it's closed for because if they go into Crimea, they have the problem, and it
Sounds terrible.
and in this territory, in this area, they have very bad. I don't know how to explain. Okay, I will try. If you go into the Turkey, it's more better for you because you have low price for fly. You have the good food. You have the people who care about you. You have the food and other.
I've heard that Ukraine is quite affordable compared to, let's say, Latvia. Can you talk about the prices?
Yeah, I
Price
can. I
differences?
can. We have different prices, but sometimes no, because I visited Lido 3 times, and we have in Ukraine like Lido, Puzata Hata, and prices for some foods more cheaper than in Ukraine, but some foods more expensive. For example, fish more cheaper, and meat or potato or vegetables more expensive than in Ukraine. But
Considerably expensive or just a little bit?
no, it's not a big difference. And I saw in Latvia a lot of Ukrainian products, so good foods. Roshen, it's candies.
Do you mean specifically
sweet.
produced in Ukraine?
Yes,
Oh.
from Ukraine.
I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe.
Chips, vodka, and many others. So it just
Hey man, if you produce some nice things, why won't you share?
I checked the photos and sent my friend, and because we're talking about that Ukrainian, we stopped our relationship with Russia, and previous the war, our main export going to Russia, but now we stayed everything in Ukraine, and we try modernization these foods or other and export to European Union, and by step we go into market of whole European Union.
So have you met anybody from Ukraine who likes the fact that the Crimea is now the Crimea is now Russia?
We have some people who has this think about this, but after the war they all just stop talking about this or just go into Russia. It's up to these people.
And was it a real war, like a civil
Yes,
war?
no, it's not civil war. It's we have occupied this territory because the Russian soldiers blocked Ukrainian navy in Crimea territory.
All right.
Yes, we have the problem when we start be independent that is Sevastopol. In Sevastopol located the Russian fleet.
Yeah.
Yes, and many army, tanks, ships, soldiers, and who work in Russian Navy stayed in Sevastopol, and it was very easy to close border with Ukraine. Because they use these people, and like said Putin, if Ukraine try to shoot Russian soldiers, they will be a big war in this territory. And we had a political crisis in Ukraine in this moment because our president left our country.
You mean now?
No,
Or
in
that time?
2014. And
Because he was corrupt, right?
yes, he was very corrupt, and
But it's hasn't it been always the case that Ukraine politics was always corrupt because they went hand in hand with the Russians?
yes, they have relationships with the Russian.
I mean,
and
you
it's-
have so many rich people over there
yes,
in Ukraine. It's unbelievable.
I agree with you, but people try to change it, and they did this revolution because they try battle against corruption. But our president left us, and he went to Russia instead. And they used this opportunity because we have our president who can sign some documents, some acts about start and protect our border.
Wait a second. Don't you have now, as the president, the Candy King?
Yes.
Do
Yeah, and
you,
I
do you
saw
think
a lot.
he's more legit?
I saw in Latvia a lot of his produce factory candies, and really I like this.
See, we're dirty too. We're dirty too. We play dirty.
Really, it's very good candies. It's not politics. Really, I like this Roshan, this company, because they produce very good quality candies. And if you looking for some other candies and Roshan, you will prefer Roshan because it's more tasty, more cheap, and more beautiful.
Was he the founder of the company?
Yes, he was
Oh,
a
that's
found.
interesting. But he's not a Jew, right? Because the interesting thing about Latvian candy, I think it was basically the biggest company was founded by a dude who went afterwards to Israel and founded then their biggest candy company.
In Ukraine, we closed before the Soviet Union. We had some Ukrainian factories in Russian Empire, and after in Ukraine Republic, People Republic, who produced some candies and sugar and export to Europe and other countries. But when they start Soviet Union, they decided it's private, it's very bad, and they nationalized these factories. And we have no private own for some factories, and whole factories which produce some stuff in Ukraine, they born after the Ukraine became the independent.
So basically, the dude who's now the president didn't really found; he just overtook. He took over.
No, it is his own company. It's
Yeah, but he privatized.
yes,
Right.
we have the private now.
But he didn't make from scratch.
No, it's his own.
He
It's his own
privatized
project. He's very smart because it's
Is he?
First president of Ukraine, unfortunately, who has high education, and he can talk in freely free Ukrainian language, Russian language, and English language.
That doesn't sound like a big achievement to me.
No, in our Ukrainian real life, it's the
Wow.
big achievement. Yeah, and he's very smart because he can talking. And he think about the result of some goods and other things. After the war, he will be start the president. We have the corruption now. It's not against, but he started some reforms, and this process start that we Ukrainian developed a new country, they renovated because after the Soviet Union destroyed, we stayed in the air. We just stayed and waiting something, not what will happen with Ukraine.
Are you sure?
Yes.
You just went along the way.
Ukrainian people, they have no identification who we are.
Well, because Ukraine is a big place.
It's a very big place, but I was born. It's really in this area, and when I studied in the school, I asked my parents why I'm studying Ukrainian language. Why? Because nobody speaks in this language, and
I actually wanted to ask you, what's the difference between Ukrainian and Russian? Because I guess you could probably speak Russian.
In my daily life, I decided for me that's my native language. It's Ukrainian, and from 16 in my routine life, I speak only Ukrainian language. It's my mind decided. What is the main reason? I think that Russian people, they are waiting for something. They don't want to change something. They just wait because Ukrainian people, they made a cerebral revolution for this time, and Ukraine, it's only one country from big state Soviet Union who haven't dictator. Because Belarus, they have dictator, Russia have dictator, Kazakhstan have dictator.
You mean now?
Ukraine changed their president, and our elections is not that predictable. We don't know who will be president in Ukraine now. We have the election in the next year, and we don't know. We try to change. We try to change our life, and we won't be the new country who can do something and present us in the world. Unfortunately, we have some problems with people mentality. We have the problem with corruption, but the young people, they try to change it. We're not waiting for our president make everything for us. First of all, we need to make our country ourselves. It's our country. It's not our leadership country. It's not our government country. It's our country. And it's the main reached what after the revolution.
What do you mean with which revolution?
Revolution of Destiny in 2014.
And when was the previous revolution before that?
10 years ago, Orange
2004,
Revolution,
right? Yeah.
and previous revolution, it was in 1991.
Seems to me that you should stop with the revolution.
Yes, I agree with you.
Just call it some reform or whatever.
Yes,
Too many revolutions.
We started, and we now have the economic crisis in Ukraine.
Now?
Yes.
So what's the symptoms?
Our money value, because in the previous it cost $1, it was 8 hryvnias. Now $1 it's 28 hryvnias.
Which means I could buy almost a town in Ukraine right now, right?
Yeah, and 10 times it's higher, and our salary is not going like our high and high the money and
Yeah.
value, and we try to our government make the bigger salary, but we now make the new and developed our factories, our produced. Because we closed the Russian export,
Yeah.
and we need to develop very high developed for sell it to other countries.
What do you need to develop?
Our factories. We had a lot of factories from Soviet Union.
Nah, you mean you just need to
Renovated.
find new partners.
Yes, who will be connect with us. We now have a lot of exchange program and support from European Union and America, United States of America, from Canada, because Ministry of Foreign.
They want that money,
Money,
from
money.
you.
They
want that money from you.
Ukraine for this country, it's tool for influence for Russia because it's very close to.
Don't you have any resources?
We
No.
have the resources,
Yeah,
but
sure.
for
Sure.
use these resources, first of all, we need and they need help us.
You need a puppet government in Ukraine, and then you just make the things.
But it's like auction because we have big connection with Arabic countries. Qatar.
No, Ukraine has connections with Arabian
Yes.
countries. Why?
Because
With the candies?
no, we have some resources which we export to Qatar and United Arab Emirates.
Like, for instance, what?
I don't know what they declined visa regime
Yeah.
for Ukrainian people in this two days ago. You can check the news. Qatar.
You mean you don't need a visa?
Yes.
Sounds interesting.
And they make a lot of documents with our president and with our government for cooperation in some I don't know what, because I need to check some information about this. I just stayed in Liepaja and I close and switch off my phone.
If it's not for borderline human trafficking, then it should be good.
They make the okay, we have the European Union and America, and we are not absolutely depend from this country, and we find new partners who can I don't know how it translate contactship with USA and European Union, and it's our opportunity to make equal.
Ukraine great again. Say it.
Yes, make equal relationships between European Union and Ukraine. We are not won't be depend absolutely from these countries. We want equal partnership with European Union and America.
In the sense that you would like to participate in the European Union? Because I feel like you are so big, you could just live on your own.
No, because we have the same problem with Central Europe countries, like Baltic countries who joined to European Union. I saw your country, and you have the same problems like in Ukraine. People going to abroad. They're not good salary for people in Latvia.
Sort of, yeah.
Yes, and you pay money like as a European state for communals, for heating system, and many others. And Ukrainian people don't want lose their benefits from our country, and we want just equal partnership with European Union. We don't be participant of this country, but it's only my opinion. Other Ukrainian people thinking maybe other. I can't talk from whole Ukrainian nation.
It sounds like you have thought about this at least sometimes. How come you are so young and so thoughtful?
I'm studying just in history faculty, and was my term. I just reading some information about this, preparing some information about this, and talking with the young people from my university, other universities, from youth exchange by Erasmus. We're talking about this, and it's only my opinion. I want give the good education because I'm finished my bachelor degree, and I want to go to master degree to European country state because they have the special tradition and more better information and equipment for study than in Ukrainian university. And I want take some knowledges and use it in Ukraine. I don't want to go to abroad and live there. For traveling, okay. For other things, okay, but not for a whole life.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, we can talk about the travel because policy is very specific terms and.
Well, let's say when you talk about current events and add to the fact that you have some sort of experience academically with history, it makes more sense that you are more inclined to think about these things in detail, in a sense that you plan out, that you think about it thoroughly. Have you ever considered the fact that, for instance, I think 100 years ago? No, or maybe 150 years ago. Well, basically in the 19th century, I think Russia wasn't even really that independent, in the sense that, because I remember in the biography of J.D. Rockefeller, he described that he had certain difficulties in competing in Europe, specifically in Russia, because the Swedish industrialists have gotten there before. And he mentioned particularly who was the Nobel? Yeah, Nobel invented TNT, right? Yeah, that his family was also a big industrious family, and they owned lots of refineries in Russia. And so, haven't you? I'm not sure whether or not you've particularly looked for those type of occurrences when it comes to business or economics. But don't you think in let's say 100 years or so, it might be the case that Russia doesn't even exist? In the sense that, all right, at that time, Swedish and Americans wanted to go there. I think even British went in there. And that was only the 19th century. So at the start of the 19th century, you have the Bolsheviks throwing everything under the bus. Now it's 1 century later. Now they are sort of not an empire, but have some ambitions regarding of being one, but don't have any clue how to be an empire. So it might be the case that it's really regressing towards getting back into the hands of the Westerners.
Russia is a very specific region in this Europe area. Europe area, okay. Because it was only one country before the First World War who has absolutely monarchy in their country. And if Europe...
Wait a second, what? Before the First World War?
Yes. In
I think everybody was a monarchy back then.
Yet, but they have constitution monarchy, and Russia is only one. Maybe you remember from history study, самодержавие.
I'm not familiar with the word at all.
Okay, they have three main elephant. It's a metaphor.
But weren't the Romanovs related to other European kings?
They were related, but it was geopolitic and other European monarchy destroyed which not include Great Britain, because Great Britain, they have make and modernization their monarchy.
Yeah.
But other European countries finished their monarchy time. It the new international relationship. At Russia, they have good economic position, but they have
You mean now or back
not
then?
back
Alright.
now, and they if they win in this war, they will continue and modernization their country, not like empire, but the independent state. Because they have very high in the last year, this started 19th century from 1993. They have high and high, step by step, every year, economy, industry.
At the start of the 20th century?
Yes.
Really?
Before they
I
modernized
thought-
the country and make the new soldiers and new stuff for war. They need it because they prepare into the Great War. They write some documents for with the other country, and the connection they prepare into the war. And
I thought the case was that at the start of the 20th century, most of Europe was literate, but most of Russia wasn't.
Russia modernization by the economy, but in 1905 they have a revolution, little revolution, because people won't make their government. They didn't want have the God on earth. Because they have no government, and only one person, it was Nikolai II. He decided everything in this country, and people want the change in their country because they saw how in Europe they have constitution, they have other things, they have right of humans. It's not right of humans now, but they started to do it. And for Russians people, it was a critic line, deadline for depend from Tsarat this time, and they lost the opportunity because if this one moment Bolsheviki just take their country, Russia, and after make it in the Soviet Union, because they promised people two new main problem for this time to solve this problem.
Wasn't it all sort of a conspiracy? Because am I correct?
Yeah,
that Lenin wasn't originally in Russia. He was at the time in what, Switzerland or something like that.
No, we have some.
Or Germany?
We have some ideas about this, but unfortunately, Bolsheviki destroyed some documents and facts how we can read this, and we have the line of history. They have communication with Germany, of course, because
why? Of course. What's the link?
because they have in Bavaria region, they have first communist state.
I thought the Paris Commune was the first communist.
Paris.
The Paris Commune.
No. If the first, it was a Münster community in 16th century. It was a religion community. They and Karl Marx when wrote his Capital, he take from experience from Münster society.
Or maybe you mean the Manifesto.
Manifesto and Capital. He talking how people
No, 'cause
lived.
when he wrote the Capital, he was just in England, right?
In London, they have first meeting in London.
All right.
Yes, and they talking about this how. But he described this Münster community in Germany, how they living in communism. How they share their stuff, doing some work and take. But he is not only one line. He takes something from others, some other philosopher, and it's not only one idea. It's a modernization for this time, previous ideas. And no ideology now, it's the new, it's just upgrade and modernization and add something other from previous.
Well, that's a tricky statement, because it used to be true, but then we got smartphones. It's not the same anymore.
It's not the same anymore, but
Nobody who could have guessed 15 years ago we would be able to see each other through some small screen across the globe.
but ideology it's not technical progress. It's
What?
it's quite a different things, because ideology it's your daily life, and they if the people live in, for example, families.
It's a bit. This is a bit of.
No, we modernized it.
I see where you're going, but basically, I guess the Greeks would be the first ones to argue against that, because philosophy, as in general, thinking about life, started because they had just the time, right? It wasn't because they wanted to make the time. It was because they, technology-wise, socially-wise, politically-wise, they structured their society in such a way that they had some time, and so they started to valuing arts, different academic studies. At least that's what I've heard, right? So I would guess it might be the case. Sometimes it's more of the one, and sometimes it's more of the other. But yeah, I mean, these things, they change the world. Well, that's the real revolution.
Yeah, it's change the world. So yes, but we talked previous about ideology, and if we
And that's an
ancient
ideology.
time, it's ancient time. We have tribes. Now we have the nuclear family, but basically, in general, it's the family.
It's not true. It's never been true.
And
It's
modernization
it's
step by step.
it's a funny thing, because anthropologists actually argue against such a statement. Family, monogamous relationships haven't been around for that much. Most of anthropologic knowledge suggests that actually you or me wouldn't even know our real biologic father, for instance, just because some random somebody, right? So
but they live in some community. From other communities, they have no something doing with other community. They lived in small communities. They not like a wolf and only one person working.
well, think about it this way. At least not in Europe for the past probably 3,000 years, right? Before that, who knows really, but not in Europe. Now, I mean, even today, you could find some South American tribe living on their own in the jungle, but those are not really good representations of how Europeans lived 4, 5, 6,000 years ago. It's just that they have their own climate, their own environment. We had our own, and I guess anthropologists would disagree with the statement that the nuclei of the society is the family. The nucleus is just a human, in a sense that everybody who has some potential as a human being is the main point of society. And then it's I'm not sure whether or not it was coming from anthropologists further, but I guess afterwards it comes to genders, and when in the case of England, also social status. For instance, England, India, maybe even now, maybe even today, you can find social differences.
Yes, I agree with you, but generally, in absolute generally, they live in small communities, big communities. It doesn't matter, but they live in community because
All right,
only
all
one
right.
person he can't make kill some animals, and they need cooperation for survive, and they are just modernization. They use a new technology. They thinking about something, and step by step they doing. But about ideology, ideology in Greece also they have tyranny for some several ages. And for example, in Nazi Germany we have tyrants, but it's not same. But the main general basic position from Greek time and from Nazi Germany, they are same. They have the one leader. They have the killed people who have some other things and other stuff. It's just modernization. It's not the same, but in the basically they have the same. Like Marx, he just take from other good experience or bad experience information and knowledges and make his own communism. But this communism, it's not this communism which was in Soviet Union. It's the communism who will be modernized by Lenin and after by Stalin. It's awful communism. If we saw how live the people in Soviet Union and reading, for example, Karl Marx, we understand it's different, but it's the communism.
Well, it's the name, yeah, that they used for that.
Yes, and I talk about this. They make change, but it's basically. For
But how
example,
come? But how come you are putting an emphasis to that? Because basically all of the forms of government are the same. I mean, you just put a label on it, but it
but
doesn't really represent
they are
the
same
content.
in absolutely basically since from medium age when a country should protect their people. But for example, if we comparing, for example, Germany and Cambodia in
You mean current modern Germany?
okay, not modern Germany, Democratic Republic Germany. It's west part of Germany, and for example, Cambodia
West part wasn't it the Federal Republic?
yeah, Federal Republic. Sorry, yes, because I remember on Ukrainian and abbreviature and translate yes. And for example, Cambodia, they had the genocide, Pol Pot, but
What's Pol Pot?
he is leader of this country. He is the communist.
Well, I mean, when you speak about those things, it might be the case that they just put a label on it, and that's about it.
Okay, you said about the government. They have basic. Every government has basic position. Yes.
No, because you have plenty of states without government and plenty of governments without states in the world. You have around roughly 200, well, 196 UN members or something like that, right? Which would be called officially a state in a general context. But you have probably 2,000 actual states, actual governments, right? So it's really once you have the global once you have the global political scheme so clear, in a sense that never in the world could you contact and see what's happening on the around the globe, right? But now you can. Once you see that, you see it's not really straightforward with anybody. And those types of scenarios where some local leader is doing some nasty things and calling it, a policy or an act because of ideology, is just a well. Think about it this way: you had what was it called? The Crusaders, right? Doing some war because of religious ideology, sort of. But it wasn't really. It was economic in a sense.
Yes, and
It was influential. So, well, that would be some form of human behavior that hasn't really changed that much. That we want to do something, but we don't want to make it so obvious that we just wanted to do that. So we try to make it a bigger issue than it really is, and say, yeah, it's because God, it's because of the total benefit to all people. Well, sort of some ideology or some bigger meaning to that. But yeah, it's just deception, more or less deception.
Yes. Okay. I have the other arguments how to.
But about the Cambodian dude, what did you wanted to say about him?
Cambodia, yes, not Cambodia. Okay, Cambodia. They was communistic country, communist, and they have their genocide, their people. And during 4 years when he leadership on this country, he killed near 3 million people, his own, because he want make the new social revolution, communist revolution in his country, and repeat Soviet Union experience, and make in life ideology of Karl Marx. They want changed their style of lifestyle of these people, and they made the urbicide. They killed people who has glass, because these people in mind to this government so clever, and they make the revolution, and they killed people who has the glasses. Deported from cities a lot of people to countryside for doing work their arm, because in basic ideology of Karl Marx and Engels, that people working in factories or in earth, ground, and they make something, not technology. They should make arm work. And for good.
Wait, what? Marx didn't really emphasize that one, right?
No, okay, it's I'm not good explain what I mean.
Because what I what I clearly took from Marx's Capital is just a simple fact: technology improves the working conditions of humans.
About factories, not in their life, not people life.
No, it's not really about factories per se. It's about the struggle of human existence and the improvement of living conditions. So, improvement in technologic efficiency allows people to live more conveniently. That's about it. There's no real ideology behind it anymore. So I think most of the time when we speak about those, let's say, genocides or things like that, again, it's more or less convenient for you as a brutal authoritarian to argue that you do it because of a higher purpose. But nobody in the history of the world has ever been such a social engineer that he could be able to actually make, I don't know, millions of people do things so almost in synchronicity because he sort of convinces them to do. It's not really the case. There's a sort of either story that's not being told, or it's being oversold in a sense. Because take this for instance. If everybody in Cambodia had one of these, right? And then some dude comes and says, well, if you won't work at my factories or whatever, I will punish you or I will do some nasty things to you. They will just coordinate with each other and screw that dude up quickly. I think that's the main point of the Spring Revolution, right? In Egypt. Get that social media basically
Social media, yeah,
allow them to organize things that wouldn't have happened otherwise, right? And that's that's the difference, right? Because somebody says officially, well, I do it because of the ideology. It's not really a representation of the ideology. It's more a representation of that person and those circumstances. And if those circumstances are really possible, technically they're possible, then it's more than the ideology. It's more related to somebody really coordinating that. And if you can manage that, it seems to me that you have some proven merit. Otherwise, people wouldn't just follow you. Because I've seen that. Of course, not when it comes to life and death, but I've seen when it comes to people not knowing where they are going, and then somebody sort of knows or seems to know, right? And so they just follow the one who seems to know, even though that dude might not really know anything, right? It's just that at one point you feel sort of without a clue, and now you seem to have a clue, and your clue is just to follow the one who has the clue, right? And I've seen that more or less within religious sects, in cult and religious sects. I've seen that one. People feel lost, then they meet somebody or see somebody who seems to know it all, have all the answers, right? So they go with them, and then they become just silly. They buy into it in the sense that they feel even uncomfortable to back out of it, right? To say at one point, oh, I made a mistake, I shouldn't be here, I'm out, right? And I think it's more trivial than it would be explained in a in a news segment, because news segments or generally the news, they have to evoke some emotion from you, right? So when you heard about the genocide, you felt something.
I read about genocide, and I have the little problem with my English skills, how explain it, because they have special terminology, and it's quite difficult for me to explain correctly.
No, but I really understood what you meant.
Yes, but it's I have the mixed serial in my mind when I translate word by word how I want and how I should say it correct in English. And I hope in the next time when I improve my English skills in history basic, we will talk about it. But about that you said now, we can speak about this in our time. 20 years ago, they have no internet connection. They have live in traditional because these people save all their habits, previous experience, their generation. And this man, Paul Sat, he destroyed everything. He destroyed everything, and he want make a new people, new society, where family it's not main family. It's not main slot of society. They separate father from son, mother from wife, from husband, and other. And these people haven't made the revolution from and against, because they have no support from their family member or other, and these people, they just waiting for something. They have no opportunity, and they don't know how make finish this genocide. You can just check it in the internet and reading about this.
What
Yes.
I wanted to make a point with was this: in Nazi Germany, you had definitely some soldiers and some people who were deported or just took out of homes who dissented, right? Who protested and actually got into trouble because they protested, right? It's just that there are no real documentation about them as much. So it seems like everybody was just following and it sort of happened. But there's nuance to it.
Different between Cambodia, for example, with Nazi German, is that in Germany lived educational people, because in this Cambodia, near 60 or 70% on this time was people who live in small villages, and they have only 3 or 4 classes for study.
Yeah, but they probably listen to the radio.
For example, Germany, they are preparing for this. German people preparing for this ideology, because why Adolf Hitler take his leader, because Germany, they have, after the Second World War, is Weimar Empire and Nazi Empire, Third Reich Empire. In Weimar Republic, the First World War, they have economy disaster after Black Tuesday in USA. They have a really economy disaster. They pay money for countries who won in the First World War, and they need develop their modernization and renovated country after the First World War. And it's the Adolf Hitler use people mentality and necessary for this moment, at this moment, because people was ready for a new leader who can upgrade the economy and who can unite it, this country, because you know that Germany has different lands, 16 lands now, and previous, in only 1871 there was empire. Before it was different lands, different countries, and for safe united country and not making the separate ambition for some lands, because Bavaria wants to separate from this area. He use propaganda for united of this population, for this society. They found their envy, yes. Yes, envy. This person, it's your opposite. It's envy, yes.
And what? Envy?
Enemy.
Enemy.
Enemy, yes.
All right.
And their enemy, united enemy, and they use this opportunity for start war.
Look,
okay.
if you could go 60 years into the future, people who study history would say, well, in 2016 there was this social unrest in America, so a leader with orange hair came and he united the people. that he will bring the needed changes and he will make them great again, right? But what really happens is that you can actually see how people are just scoffing on a day-to-day basis, right? It's the funny thing. On a general aspect, you could argue, there's this one narrative that goes through a period of history, and it seems to be so solidified, right? But when you look into it, and if you have the option of looking into it, and we do, I mean, we can literally watch all the tweets that Donald Trump makes, right? What happened 2 years ago, we can see all the news clips, all the interviews, everything. We can see it. We see that there is no real mastermind manipulator working, right? We see that, they were socially unsatisfied with lots of different things, but we see that all the time. It's not really. It doesn't matter how you view it economically, politically, socially. People basically after the Industrial Revolution, once we don't milk cows anymore ourselves, but just buy it from somebody else, we like to freaking argue about something. It's just human nature. And then, if you look in all those details, you see whether or not it's Germany in the, let's say, 1930s, or it's America in the 2000s, or it maybe will be Sweden in the 2100s, right? People won't be satisfied, right? And so there is always the possibility of creating a narrative, creating a story behind that unsatisfactory circumstances. But the reality of the matter is, all right, people are just looking to argue.
Yes, they wanted save, and they make the choose, and their choose it will be result in future. And in Germany, in this previous become the Hitler, they have people who want save from economy disaster, from influence from West other countries, and in this mind people, only Hitler can change it. For this moment, they don't imagine what after
but what about those
6 years?
But what about those millions of people who said Adolf Hitler is an idiot? Because you could find documents, right, stating that in 1935, 1936, people said Adolf Hitler is a crazy man. He shouldn't be in government. He shouldn't be near us at all. He should be a mental institution. You can probably find
yes,
lots
and
of
other European countries talking about this, but nobody do something.
Well,
they won't save.
Think about it this way. It's more simple that way, I guess. If you look back at 2014, you didn't want Crimea to be annexed. It wasn't your choice, but it still happened.
Yes.
So, how come?
It's a history process. Yes, of course. We can.
But see, maybe in the future, somebody will say, well, at 2014, the people in Ukraine, they weren't satisfied, and then there came Putin with the option to actually annex Crimea, and Ukrainians liked it. Ukrainians liked it, but here you are, Ukrainian. You don't like it.
We have a document like in Germany, like in now. No, if Ukrainian people support and liked the Putin options, half part of Ukraine go into Russia, but it's not happen because people think about the result of this. What we will do now? We should have a fight from this.
But you were probably surprised about Crimea still, right? Did you expect it?
It's not surprised because a lot of Russian people lived in Crimea and they talk about this sometimes. But our government that not destroyed relationship between Russia and Ukraine, and just quiet and okay, Russia and people in the Crimea, okay, not war, okay, we are friends, and it's happened.
So is it a big loss?
Our government, they want previous government before this war, they want sitting on two chairs, Russian chairs and European Union chairs. And at the moment it's should be happened. In my opinion, it should be happened after the destroyed Soviet Union, because Ukraine have some pretension to Russia and Russia to Ukraine. They have a problem with Crimea because in 20 years ago, in the beginnings our century, Russian tried to build coast line to Crimea.
Yeah.
And our previous president said, "Stop! What are you doing? It's not okay. It's not a friendlyship between our countries." And they stopped. But they used this opportunity when Ukraine in ruined after the revolution, and okay, you can do and take everything from this country. They have no leadership, they have no government, they have destroyed government built in local councils, destroyed because people fighting with these deputies and government. It's happened, yes. In my opinion, it should happen more previous than now, because we have the problem with Russia, and Russia have problem with us for territory, for people, and for others.
But does Russia want more? I thought they just wanted Crimea back.
They have problem from Crimea, and Ukraine have some benefits and problem from Crimea, because European Union declined visa for us. European Union support us. We started to reform. Ukrainian people become identified themselves, who they are. And the previous it's not possible, because they just depend from Russian mind. What Russia say, Ukrainians should make, because we are youngest brother of Russia, and Russia it's our brother. It's not.
Wait a second, but historically, at some point, probably all of those people were quite close, right?
Quite close, because in a Soviet Union time.
No, I mean before Soviet Union.
Before, no. If you saw, the Russian Empire had only one report about population of Russian Empire in 1897, and you can see that in territory of Ukraine now, almost whole population is Ukrainian.
When was the term Ukraine? Even?
No, Ukrainian language. They use Ukrainian language in their daily life.
How old is the Ukrainian language?
Our language is Belarus, Russian, and Ukrainian languages separated in 16th century, and the first Ukrainian literature translate Bible. It was in 16th century. It's first Ukrainian book on Ukrainian native language who speak people in countryside or in cities.
And did you have also a history of having other languages dominating? Let's say the government, the schools.
Russian people who worked in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And this was part of Russian Empire. They not allow Ukrainian people going to government, local government, and
so it was the business as usual, yeah.
And whole government in Ukraine from Russia was, absolutely whole. And the problem because the main cities, and now we have the result for this Russification, that in the city people speak Russian language. If you go in 30 kilometers to countryside, everybody speak Ukrainian.
What do you mean in a city? In all cities?
Not whole cities, in east and south part.
Oh, so those parts who wanted to be separate?
Now, no.
'Cause there were a couple of-
some people they maybe want, but it's not a whole. They try to speak Ukrainian language like me, and they are using our culture and talking about our history. They don't want, it's not a global idea, people from south to separate, because they understand if they
From south? No, east.
east, we have the only small piece of territory of Ukraine, and the west conflict war fired.
What's happening now?
Other part of Ukraine, I will continue your question. Other part, Ukraine saw how Russia protect their Russian ideas and Russian spring in this territory. They just blocked, absolutely blocked from Russia and from Ukraine, and they have the fight from this. Russia, for Russia, it's not a main reason to take this part and united with other Russian territory. It's the catch Ukraine and just keep in Russia sphere of their influence.
So
Because
now,
Ukraine can go and they won't go to Europe and to civilization part of the world, and it was main reason because why this main reason why our revolution start in 2014, because our president was between two fire. We have should signed association with European Union, and other side we should write association with Russia. And he decided since association with Russia. And after people say, no, what are you doing? Are you kidding us? We make two revolutions. We won't go to Europe, and now you just your pen destroyed mind. Our what are you doing? We won't go to Europe. We don't go back to Soviet Union, back to gulags, back to Russia mentality, vodka, and many others. The people won't go to Europe, and we started revolution, and after it's step by step, then after this about this territory was occupied. Now they have fight every day. People died in this war. It's civil population, it's our soldiers, and it's Russian soldiers. Because European Commission and our Commission and our FBI, Ukrainian FBI, I don't know how to translate, agency, they catch the Russian soldiers every week. They had near 100 Russian soldiers in Ukraine who catched Ukrainian police or other solutions.
Yep.
Yeah, and they really had worked with Ukraine. It's not civil war. Yes, people wanted going to Russia like Crimea because they think they have more money, they have Russian language. You say the same problem in Latvia. Because whole my trip, I met a lot of people who live in Latvia without citizenship.
I'm not sure how many there are, but quite a few probably.
It's a lot of people because
yeah, but old people, right?
Yes, they don't want study Latvian languages because they hate Latvian languages and they think it's Russian territory. I talk with
Well,
some.
they got really badly actually deceived because the idea was, if well, some of them probably are just really more inclined towards Russia anyway, but some were really hurt by the fact that once Latvia regained independence, they had promised to actually give persons citizenship, even though they didn't have any relations to Latvia, if they had actually helped in the regaining of independence somehow. So you had a lot of, I mean, probably hundreds of many tens of thousands of people who actually participated and did, and then afterwards they didn't get the citizenship, right? So and so they, I think many people were just hurt by that.
If the Latvia not join to European Union and NATO, you will have same war in Latvia. It's absolutely and.
That's why we joined.
Because you have the problem with Russian language in your kindergarten and schools, and I saw many manifests, crazy Russian old people who talking about that our children should study in Russia and they needed Latvian language. And we have the same problem. It's Russia make a lot of money for propaganda is our region.
I'm not sure whether or not I follow your logic, because I understand the fact that yeah, you had quite several and important ties with Russia beforehand. I mean, you even had some form of rent contract with before, and Timoshenko was also in prison, right? So you had a like a big affair many years, right? But for us, once we got into the European Union, the fact was quite simple. As I see it, many Russians don't really like to live in Russia, but they are not. Well, they are so lazy that they want to still feel like it's Russia. So they want to speak Russian. They want to do Russian things, right?
Yes, like
But they don't really like Russia as the territory. They more like Russia as the mindset. So even if they go to the Alps, right, they behave like Russians.
when I speak, his name Ritvars, yeah. In Liepāja, he worked. He built some. He heating system, make the heating system in our hotel where we lived in Erasmus project. He has 35 years now, and he hasn't citizenship because he thinks that Latvia it's Russia. He said Latvia it's Russia. It's
Well, maybe he said it in a simple English way.
he speak only Russian language, and
That's funny.
when I know more.
It's funny because
I
his
know
word.
more word.
It's funny because his name is Ritvars. It's not Russian at all.
It's not Russian name. He said his mother she from Latvia. Duaplis. It's a city near of Riga. Duaplis.
Duobela?
No. Okay, doesn't matter.
With a D?
D, first D. In the south. In the south.
Duobela. Maybe Duobela.
Okay, it doesn't matter. And his father, he's Russian, and
Or maybe Daugavpils?
yes,
Oh, that's near the Russian border.
yes.
Well, I mean, Daugavpils is probably 80% Russian speaking.
And if you're not
So his parents are both Russian, basically.
okay.
But it's funny enough, but yeah, many times you find Russian parents in Latvia giving their names Latvian sounding names because they think it will help them to actually sort of maneuver through everyday
my
life.
parents speak Russian language and me before this something, and in my passport not in passport, ID. In my passport, I had the name in Russian, but I changed my name for Ukrainian analog for Mykhailo in my ID card.
Yep.
Yes, and for me it's question about who I am. I am not Russian. I am Ukrainian, and
if we do some genetic tests on you, it might be the case that you are also Moroccan.
I have the Greek roots and Russian roots, but I am identified like Ukrainian. I'm Ukrainian. It's for me.
It sounds like a sports team.
A little bit, and I won't live in Ukraine. I don't want to change the citizenship, and it's my country. I study this language, and what is the main problem? Why my parents speak Russian? Because the previous generation, they lived in this area. The Prigozhin region is called near the Crimea. They speak Ukrainian language. My grandmother and my grandfather, they speak Ukrainian language. But the Soviet Union closed every Ukrainian schools, and if you don't speak in Russia, you have no opportunity to find good work. And they forbid Ukrainian language. They have only one Ukrainian newspaper, other closed, and only Russia. You should only Russian. And a lot of people from Russia came to Ukraine. This Soviet Union time, especially in Stalin times, because we have the same problem, Holodomor, where in the 1932-33, 1 year, about 3 million Ukrainian people disappear because they recruit the population 2 years ago, and after 3 years ago, and 3 million people Ukrainians disappear. But in this review, Russian people in our region, especially in the south and east, more and more every year they become from this territory. And a lot of Ukrainian families who try fight with communism regime, they deported to Siberia. A lot of Ukrainian peoples live in Siberia and in the east, it's in the Sakhalin, in the other territory. They really deported a lot. And this main reason why this generation, my parents and previous, my grandmother and my grandfather, they scared the leadership of this country, and they speak Russian. Because they don't want, they want to save their life. It doesn't matter, okay, for this. But in this time, we have opportunity to renovate and prosperity our Ukrainian nation, our Ukrainian language, our Ukrainian culture. We have a country like Latvia in 1918. You have the 100 years, and this year celebrate. 2 years, or not 2 years, 2 days ago, in my study city in Lviv, our mayor of city opened a new monument for 100 Ukrainian Republic people. And we want to remember our heroes, remember our history. It's not a whole Russian history. We have our history, local history. We have all local language, and this is very important things for Ukrainian people. I think if it not be impossible, we will be like, I don't know, like Belarus. They forgot their language.
I guess so.
I visited Minsk, and it's like Russia. It's like Russian city, absolutely.
Which is probably not that bad. I mean, their city is just a city.
They lost. They are unique. They lost the unique.
We all
it's
lose
it's
it.
a globalization,
Yeah, we all lose it.
but the basically, since I have my native tone and I can speak English, it's international, I support it. We have our some unique things that
Sure,
Ukraine.
but those are related more to people's lifetimes than eternity.
What will be in the future, we will see. But
Yeah,
at
that's
the
what I mean.
moment, we have this situation and we have this solve, and we need it do.
So, what do you plan to do? You go back to Ukraine, tell Putin to get lost, and take back Crimea?
It's very huge plan. I will back to Ukraine. I need to finish my education. I 1 year ago I worked in city council in our city, and we adapted for comfortable life Ukrainian people, and we doing urbanists stuff in our city. And it's very great experience for me, and I want to continue work in this forward. And when I will back to Ukraine, I want to share my knowledge which I from Europe and adopted it in Ukrainian implementment in Ukrainian realities. For talking about Crimea, I love this territory because in my childhood, whole time, me and my parents we visited this Crimea, and I know every city in this area. And I really want it back to Ukraine, and I can visit it again. But it's very quite difficult problem, and it's very hard problem because in Crimea lived 2 million people, and
How many?
2 million,
Alright.
and it's
So it's Latvia, basically.
yes. It was in previous, but how many people lives in Crimea now, I don't know, because a lot of people and a lot of students every year from Crimea try to go into Ukrainian universities, and many people from Crimea go into my parents' town, and we have the 3 or 4 families, new families, neighbors who from Crimea. Yes, now how many people I don't know, but people who stayed in Crimea, they made their changed, and it's very quite difficult to just, it's not sandwich Crimea, go back and go this. It's very hard process to integrate this territory back to Ukraine. But we should do it. It's our territory, and it will be our problem in the next future, I hope, how we should adopt this new people go to Ukraine. And first of all, what we need to do is upgrade our economy and make a powerful country in Central East Europe. And after we will talk about back Crimea and other problem with our territory. Yes. At the moment, the economy and save this country in this border, how we make it.
How could Ukraine invade Russia?
Wait.
Invade. Conquer.
Invade Russian people.
No, not Russian people, just Russia. You know, Ukrainians thinking, we are too small of a territory. Let's go get some from Russia. And then go into Russia and take some territories for you.
It's not be possible because we have our borders, and Ukraine want renovated border before this war. Crimea and this piece of territory, Donbass, it's our territory.
But if you could
we need more.
But if you could get all the territory till Moscow, you would take it. Why not?
It's the bad idea because it's a million Russian people, and we should adopt it to our economy, and it's not be possible. We need it. I hope Russia keep calm and stay in their border, because it's the really world problem is Russia destroyed. Because we have 1 million refugees from this territory, and they have the Oh, I forgot. Can you remember, please, Hiroshima and Nagasaki? I remember. I
What
forgot.
about them?
Bomb, atom,
Nuclear bomb, yeah.
not yeah, nuclear
Atom
bomb.
bomb.
Yes, yes. They have a lot of atom bombs in.
Yeah, but they probably
different-
don't work, right? I mean, it's
you-
Russia after all.
Yes, it's produced by Russia, but this bomb we should finish. And who will owner of this atom bomb? We don't know, because Russia, it's really a huge territory. It's from.
But that's the problem, right? Russia is not really a country, right? It's more like a
No, Russia is not.
it's a conglomeration of countries.
It's a federation. It's a federation.
Yeah, but like a real federation. That
Yes.
If you go into some certain regions, there's nobody really thinking about Russia. They're just thinking about themselves.
They have own a problem because in our whole time I just kidding from Russian people about Russians who live in South Russia, because it's Muslim people and they very hate native Russian people who live in, for example, in Moscow, in this area. They really hate people from South, and when they said the slogan about Krym nash.
Yeah.
You know about this, yeah. And when I meet these Russian people on some project, I said Chechnya Nasha. It's the special region which they have war with Russia before the Putin with Yeltsin. And they're very annoying about this because they think Chechnya it's not Russia, but territorially it's Russia. And if
Wait a second. So you met Chechen people?
yes.
Oh yeah.
No,
I mean,
not Chechen. When I say that Chechen people is Russian and Russian.
No, but Chechen people do like to think of themselves just as Chechen,
Yes, they Chechen.
but they speak Russian.
They not speak Russian. They identity themselves like they have different Russian and Русский.
All right.
Русский и россиянин. Chechen people it's россияне because they have Russian citizenship.
So it's a dialect.
It's the special Russian linguistic thing.
Like
They
a
have,
dialect.
it's not dialect.
No, but I mean they have a certain difference when they speak Russian, right?
Yeah,
it's
everybody in Russia
almost-
speak Russian.
So it's almost like a dialect.
But their own language not close to Russian language. Absolutely, it's absolutely different.
But do all Chechen people speak Chechen? Probably not.
Quite different because I travel to Chechnya when I go into Georgia, and I heard some people speak in Chechen language, but a lot of people, especially in shops and other places, they speak Russian language.
So it's sort of the situation as, for instance, Latvia was in the Soviet Union. I mean, you could have heard many times Russians, but still Latvian was spoken.
Yes, but
So
in
and
Riga it's
so now they are sort of in the same situation because they actually would like to be independent, right? And it's a funny thing. Why aren't they? Because Russia doesn't have the resources to put them under. So much.
Russia have resources. They have.
Yeah, but think about it this
They
way.
save money.
Think about it this way, because Russia doesn't have only problems with Chechens, right? Russia has a lot of problems with a lot of people. So once all or most would be at the same time, they couldn't handle it.
For Russia, it's their mentality. They don't think about around there. They think about what is other country. And we have a lot of memes in internet when fight your home in Russia, for example, and your main question, why not my home fire? What happened with Ukrainian? Because they whole time in their TV and internet they talking about Ukrainian war and Ukrainian trying. They don't think about their own
Yeah, because they don't.
They speaking
'Cause
about
I mean,
Baltic states. They speak about
some do,
Belarus.
because look, Saint Petersburg lives differently than Moscow. Moscow lives differently than Chechen. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, there's I don't think there's really such a thing as Russian people. It's just Russian-speaking people, but ethnically, socially, politically, different people.
It's different people, and some people don't care about everything. But if they ask about something, they know what happened in Ukraine.
They've heard of, but I mean, they know as much as I know.
I
I've heard about it. Yeah, that's about
I
it.
can ask about what happened in your city, for example, in the last week. And these people say me, I don't know. And when I ask what happened in Ukraine, he will talk with me 1 hour. It's
Yeah, because it's more important.
yes, what happened in Ukraine is more important what they're doing in your country.
Yes. Yes.
Russia.
Always. That's always the case. No, but that's really always the case.
Yes,
When-
and
because your country is represented, so of course it's much more important than your local news.
yes, and I don't know why. I think it's their mentality, just mentality. I don't know because
I think. What do you think of my theory that it's just the language? The language makes people really not that much intelligent.
no Russian language. It's.
I mean, the syntax is a little bit weird. The syntax sometimes resembles French syntax, but the sound, it's not so pleasing as the French language, right? Sounds right. I mean, not to say that it's horribly, but you could definitely say there are languages who sound and sort of feel more comfortable, more just better than others, right? So like for instance, if somebody would come and speak Arabic, right, it doesn't sound as good as right. It doesn't sound
yeah, I agree.
the same.
But I think it's not main reason because.
But think about it this way: I've never met sort of an intelligent Russian who didn't speak English,
Yeah.
right? But I've met
Yes,
yeah, but who don't speak English. Yeah, a lot of dum-dums.
I think it's their own choice because where you study you need more information and Russian language it's not the main resourceable from your information. I'm studying English because I need to read some text in English and I think it's my key to be more clever and speak and communication with the other people. People who don't speak English and Russian, for example, and Ukrainian, they have no ambition, high ambition. They stayed in one place, working in some work and other.
So have you spoken to a Russian who also speaks English about Ukraine?
They have only one person who trusts for this propaganda in Russian, but other people they don't care about Ukraine. They think about Russia, what happened in Russia. But unfortunately, people who can speak Russian, people who can speak English in my life, I think one.
Yes,
more
same
11,
here. Not
yes.
much, not much.
And a lot of people just speak only in Russian language. And they have the other problem. Maybe you saw in some picture of Russian artist who draw this Russian around landscape. They draw the big church with gold roof, and everywhere is dirty and small houses who destroyed a little bit and people from countryside.
Yep.
They just make the hard work and the big church for this, and forest. It's their mentality, and a lot of influence make the Orthodox Church. Russian people depend from this because the Russian Orthodox Church, I don't know, it's impossible thing in my mind. They have very great influence for some Russian people and for Russian history, because it's the tool to create people who will be listen you, and you can do with these people what you want.
Manipulate, yes.
Manipulate, yes. And the Russian Orthodox Church, it was main tool in hand of Russian king.
Yeah, but what about young people?
Young people.
Because it's see, that's what I'm saying. It's changing, because even Russian people use YouTube.
It's the maximalism because they choose in their special destiny, and it's Vladimir Putin. It's the Messiah, and it's very bad West civilization. They hate Russia because Russia is the great country, and they should fight against this European Union, and Vladimir Putin back Russian territory from everywhere. And it's messianism of Russia and Vladimir Putin. I think it's and these people don't speak in English, and YouTube, Russian YouTube, almost support Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, and this main reason why the youngest people support too.
But it's more, but it's more related to the fact that they they have censored many media.
Yes, they have censored, and they you can go to prison if you make the better post in your social media.
Are you sure?
Yes, you can check it.
What would be a bad post?
About Russian policy, about Crimea, about Orthodox Church. It's the extremism, and you can give 5 years for extremism in prison if you make the repost. You can just check it after.
No, I mean, it sounds believable.
And it's.
But see, it's coming, right? Because I've noticed the music is getting a bit better the past years, because it used to be the Russian music is just always all the weird sounding, depressive sounding melodies always. But now it's becoming even Western, even pop.
Yeah, especially pop, and the Ukrainian win for Ukrainian people. Our song Plakala in this year, it's including for the most listening in the world. And when we had the radio in Liepāja hostel, they have top hot hits in Latvia radio, and our song was first in your chart.
Which what?
Plakala Kaska.
I'm not sure why I know that. Let me just check it out.
It's 88.6 in this radio.
Can you write it? Plakala Kaska. This one?
Audio.
My audio.
No, okay, video.
Is that a woman?
Yeah. Maybe you heard it.
Never heard it. How old is that?
It's in this year.
Yeah. All right.
I heard in the radio in Maxima shop.
Yeah.
I heard it, and heard it. It's a song in Liepāja top hot chart.
Maybe it was Russian hits. Maybe that radio?
They have mixed.
Wait a second, do you remember the frequency?
Yes, 88.6.
Yeah. Let's just see. So, Liepaja, 88.6? 86 FM. So what is it? Radio map, EU Liepaja, tell me 88.6.
You can maybe write the whole Latvia.
Look, it's so tricky. In Liepaja, it shows 87.7.
You
Ruski Hiti.
Yes, I saw. But
88.40 is Kurzem's radio, and 88.90. So it sounds radio for you, which is probably a local radio because I've never heard of it.
Can you check the whole? Maybe I don't know what.
Are you sure it was 88.6?
Can you check the whole Latvia? Maybe.
I'm not sure that they get whole Latvia. There's usually, let's say you have a radio station in Riga, it will be one frequency. In Liepaja, it will be another. In Daugavpils, another. Because it's.
I remember they have 88.6.
Let me just see what's up with 88.6 in general then. Humor FM.
Maybe.
See, that's what I mean. Well, still, if somebody is listening to it, why not? So yeah, that's what I mean. And wait a second, Ukraine has McDonald's, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess it was the first instance of two countries with McDonald's as fighting.
We have I forgot what is the place in the top. Our McDonald's in Kiev, the most a lot of visitors, and they have the top in the world. I forgot what this place, maybe second or third. It's more visitors in the world.
Well, I guess Kiev attracts a lot of tourists, right?
They have the population approximately 5 million people, because the official.
And would you say most of them are total Ukrainian patriots?
In Kiev? Oh, it's very quite difficult question, because it's a big city and they have a lot of foreign people, Russian people, Ukrainian people, Belarus people.
So maybe not.
It's a melting pot, really, and if you will.
But Ukraine was in the west, right? Kiev was in the west, yes.
In the middle.
In the middle.
Yes, and if you will talk with the people on Russian language, they will speak with you in Russian language. As you start Ukrainian language, they will answer on Ukrainian language. They were different because different people from east, from west, from south, from north, they go into this melting pot and they mixed and. It's different people. It's really different. Like in Riga, and you can go to some people and ask where you're from. One people say I'm from Latvia, other people say I'm from Russia, and other people I'm tourist from Germany. You have the tourist from Lebanon. It's really molten pot. It's not native or title people lives in Kiev.
Anyway, local people are probably Ukrainian or Russian, right? Because here it would be probably safe to say that you have more Russian-speaking people in Riga than you have Latvian-speaking people.
For example, in Kiev, I know friends who they in daily life speak Russian or Ukrainian language. But I had my uncle. He lives near of the Kiev, the city close to Kiev, and in this town, everybody speaks Ukrainian language. But to other place I don't visit it. But in Kiev, when I travel to Kiev or doing something in Kiev, I speak Ukrainian, and almost everybody answered me on Ukrainian language.
So what's the word in Ukrainian for sandwich?
Sandwich.
Hmm.
Sandwich is translated for sandwich.
And a slice of bread with butter on it?
Бутерброд з маслом. It's
So it's the same as Russian?
it's the same as Russian, but for example, Belarus language same as Russian. It's we have the group of Slavic languages, but when I start to speak Ukrainian language, my Russian colleague absolutely don't understand me. When we was in Liepaja, and I make this experiment for Russian people if they try to understand me, because
wouldn't it be the case that, for instance, people who live in Moscow speak different Russian than people who live in what's it called, the other place,
they have
the other place around Novgorod or something like that?
they have their special pronunciation, but in generally they have same language.
So it's not like the Chinese.
No, if you can speak Russian, you will be understandable in east, and in south, and west, and everywhere. You have some different in pronunciation, but in generally the Russian language absolutely the same. Ukrainian language, it's not the same on whole this region, because people who speak, for example, in countryside in east part in Ukraine are quite difficult to understand people who live in the west part, because Ukrainian divided between Austria Empire and Russia Empire, and in the west part we have the mountains, and people say their own words or something other, and they use this word 500 years and more, and it's their native language. It's close to Ukrainian language. It's like a dialect, special dialect, basic on Ukrainian words, but with the other pronunciation and sometimes other word. And people who study, for example, Ukrainian language, it's very quite difficult to understand different Ukrainians from east and from west. But from west, people, because they in their daily lives they speak Ukrainian language, it's easy to understand people from east. It's not connection, feedback.
Sounds good. Sounds about good. So, I think
the Ukrainian language, it's very close to Polish language and Czech language. I can understand.
I wanted to say 5 minutes ago, you remind me, you guys in Ukraine, you remind me somehow of Polish and Czech people.
Yeah,
you are sort of chilled, laid back, and sort of interested in doing things. Because that's what Polish and Czech people do.
It's some influence.
Do you like beer as well?
Yes. Jedno просим пиво 12, це по-чеську.
I understand barely Russian.
Very same language. They can understand us. We can understand Czech and Polish and Slovak people. Sometime I worked in Bulgaria 1 year ago in the last summer, and I understand 60% language when talk with me in Bulgarian language, and I can read. And Belarus language for me it's absolutely same. For Ukrainian, because I know Russian and Ukrainian language and Polish language a little bit, and it's the Belarus, it's the mixed from this area, and I can see the news, and I will understand everything. Because we have the same languages, but Russian language it's not very close to other Slavic language, and we have absolutely different words from same words. Because for example Uh, roof. In Russian language, it's krysha. Ukrainian language, it's dach.
Wait a second. That's just German.
Okay, bad example. Flower. In Russia, it's цветы. In Ukrainian language, it's kwitka. In Polish language, it's kwiater. In Czech, it's kwitter. And in Slovak, I forgot. No, but it's the same. You can find a lot of memes about this Russian language. Is absolutely opposite language for Slavic language. And it's so understandable for us, some Czech or Polish or other, because we are close and same words in our languages.
What are your bordering countries? Your neighboring countries?
Poland. No, now Poland. Previous was Russia, so they're close to.
No, for Ukraine, I mean. Poland?
Around it's Russia, Belarus, Poland, Slovak, Hungary, Romania, Moldova.
Is it a good mix? Because many of those countries like to fight. They have conflicts.
It's country state in European Union and they cannot opportunity. We have only one problem with our east border with Russia. For this border, it's not be possible if Romania decided to start war with Ukraine. And,
but they have problems with corruption, right?
Yeah,
I mean, more than usual.
In the Ukrainian army, they upgraded for 4 years, very high. And if, for example, Romania decided to try to fight with Ukraine, our options, army, very quickly destroyed army in Romania.
Well, Ukraine is bigger than Romania,
yes,
right?
And our army, I forgot, maybe it's 5 times more than Romanian. And we have the absolutely the new weapons and other type of weapons. And
see, that's what I mean. You should invade Russia.
No, because the Russia more powerful than Ukraine.
Moscow wash.
And we exported the new technologies from USA, and they imported to Ukraine different type of weapons from army NATO and other. It's Ukrainian army is now so powerful, and it's not be possible if some our countries border decided fight with Ukraine, because it's not the Russia with nuclear atom bombs, and we will very quickly decide this problem.
I'm not sure whether or not that means you are sort of looking forward to having a peaceful relationship or not.
We are peaceful. We just wanna save our border. We don't want other territory. We want save Ukraine in our borders.
I'm telling you, you need to put your ambitions higher.
It's bad. We are very peaceful people, and we don't want to have war with other countries. We try decided our territorial problems through the court. Like with Romania, because Romania, we had conflict with Romania for one island in Black Sea.
Really?
Yes, and Ukraine.
What's so important about that island?
Oil and gas.
No.
Yes.
So who won?
Ukraine. In GAC, we.
Because you paid some.
We have no money.
Or Ukraine has a lot of money. Ukraine is a really rich country, right? It's just that most people don't really benefit from it.
It's very rich country, but it's not whole population. It's only 20 or 30 people. who has this. But in Ukraine, if you check some statistic, a lot of people in Ukraine. Okay, that's not a good example. When I traveled to, I had a high hitchhike trip to former Yugoslavian Republic, to Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina. I saw many Ukrainian cars, and they have relax and this. But a lot of Ukrainian people work abroad. Very a lot.
Because they make more money.
And to go back and spend in Ukraine.
Mm.
And this, I think it's maybe one person from 80-70% of people have one family member who work in abroad, and we now exchange people with Poland because whole Polish people go into Great Britain, to Norway, and other countries. Ukrainian people go to Poland, and in Poland you can find a lot of Ukrainian advertisement about the work, about roaming, calling, and other.
Interesting.
A lot of people in Poland and from Ukraine, very much, a lot of people.
Well,
they just work, make money, and go back to Ukraine.
Well, the thing is, living in Latvia, I don't have any of those concerns about people coming too much inside or outside. It's somehow beneficial to be so small, and with such a small economy. No refugee, no economic migrant wants to stay here. So, I guess that's one benefit.
Yeah, what we have.
Anyway, we need to go to sleep. It's already late.
Yeah, we have. I'll go to Riga and looking for a night. Riga again, because use whole opportunities to watch and everything what I can.
Yeah, sounds good. So where do you go next?
First of all, I need to finish my university's problem, because I skipped a lot of time this program and previous, because I have some project from city council, and I skipped maybe 1 month, and I need to finish it before the exams.
In Liepāja?
No, in Ukraine, in Lviv.
So
in my university.
So basically you've ended your stay in Liepāja, now you're in Riga, and
yes,
then you go back.
Tomorrow I will go to Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
I have the flight tomorrow.
And so you have the catch up to do with your studies.
Yes, and if I will be successful finish it for winter, for 1 month I will find some work, and for other months I have 2 months the holidays. For February I decided I want to go to Israel or maybe other, because I never been here, or maybe Spain, because not because too much, because
you could pretty much fit in Israel, right?
Yeah, and I like travel. Latvia, it's my 21st country.
Mm-hmm.
And almost to my 12th country I traveled by hitchhiking.
But anyway, if you go to Israel, try to take some lima confectionery with you from Latvia, and then see what were. I think they had either 1 or 2 big confectionery companies.
I have only one backpack for 7 kilos, and all my surprise from Latvia it will be.
Oh no, I don't mean to bring souvenirs from Latvia. I mean that you just taste some chocolate from Latvia.
Latvia, it's not a place. It's not your own produced chocolate, because in Ukraine we have the.
It depends, because Lima produces here. So our big manufacturing company Lima, they produce chocolate over here, but many recipes are quite similar with international brands. But there are some some that are still quite local.
I liked your balsam. It's amazing. It's really amazing. And your sprots. It's, they so taste. But it was very funny because in the one shop I found Riga sprots from Ukraine. They exported from Odessa to.
Yeah, it's just a trademark. Yeah.
And this big
A fish is a
can.
fish.
Yeah. And
Fish is
that,
fish.
the best, for example, Riga sprot, and I saw who is produced in Ukraine, Odessa.
Home sweet home.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for interview.
Yeah, man. Thank you. And yeah, basically, if you go back to Ukraine, finish your studies, think about taking over the government.
Yeah,
And
I will try.
go from there.